Call to order. This is going to be City of Port Richey City Council meeting for Tuesday, December 13th. At this time, I'd like to invite Pastor Ward for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Lord, we just want to thank you because of Jesus. We can approach you by faith. And Lord, we just want to ask you again in Jesus' name to guide us tonight. Lord, we just pray for the decisions to be on the agenda, to be with your wisdom and counsel, Lord. And we're thankful for these that beyond all of their livelihoods come out here, Lord, to watch over our city. So we just pray their homes would be filled with peace, and particularly this season, Lord God, that love and understanding with one another. And so, Lord, we just want to thank you for them. And, Lord, we just pray for the peace and wisdom, Lord God, to just flow out of each and every council person and worker and staff here, Lord, and just help us to lay hold on this season, the real meaning of Christmas, Lord, and to just know how to live in the announcement of the angels, that through Jesus, as they spoke to those shepherds, it would be peace on earth and goodwill toward man. Let it be so here in Port Richey. And Lord, we just humbly come and say, Lord, just let your angels and your presence watch over our firemen, policemen, all the workers in the city, Lord God. And we just ask for your protection, Lord. And just may we all live in your goodness, sharing your love with one another, and ask you just keep your hand upon the city. Watch over it. Bring it through with your goodness in Jesus' name.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
It's America,
And to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mayor Scott Chimbley.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella.
Here.
Councilman Todd McClary.
Here.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilman Bill Colombo.
Here via Zoom.
City Attorney James Matthew.
Here.
City Manager Don Duke.
Here. Thank you. Looking for a motion to approve council minutes. Motion to approve. Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
At this time, we're going to open up with commentary from the general public. I do have a sign-up sheet, and then I'm going to afford anyone else the opportunity to speak after I go through the list here that hasn't signed up. The first person signed up is Leonard Lord. Welcome. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor Council. I pastored 8114 Leo Kidd Avenue for going on 28 years. I did ask the mayor sometime, as a chaplain and a heart for the city, it's hard to share everything in 3 minutes, so I do have a few things tonight. I don't think it'll be that long, but I do just want to thank the city for the support that you give, particularly the way the departments just really serve the community and help us serve the community. So we really appreciate y'all and all of our outreaches and what you're helping with here in the city. And I do want to thank y'all for bringing Danny Fields in as a chaplain, because next month I'm going to be 76, and some nights I don't even want to go anywhere, and sometimes I get real tired, if you know what I'm talking about. And so anyway, with Danny, I do want to thank Veronica. She reached out to us to help the holiday park over on Limit Drive, and it's been a joy over there to meet with the people, pray with the people, and Danny has really worked hard. His testimony last week, they finished painting the last trailer, and he thought they had enough for one side of the trailer, and he said the paint just kept going and going and going, and they painted the whole trailer. So he come back Sunday and said it was like the little boy's lunch. And so my job was to go out and cook hamburgers and hot dogs and meet with the people and then feed the crew. So I had a good time doing that. I did do some weed eating, but I do just want to thank Veronica for reaching out and helping us be a part, and that's how we do want to serve. And particularly Danny has really worked hard, so he'll be bringing things to code enforcement and sharing, and so probably be in at the next meeting. So just want to thank all of y'all. And with that, the Christmas in the park for a moment, if y'all have this before you, we're looking for a great time. Did you know we found going to the school boards that they have been taught a lot of theories, but not taught really how for fathers to love children, children fathers, and be obedient in the things of creation of who they are. And so it seems like our public schools have lost the moral compass, and oftentimes even at Christmas, we're more into a holiday of stressing to perform, to get gifts and buy, rather than to really understand that God so loved us, he gave Jesus to know how to live in peace and live in love. And so in the park, we're just excited to be able to, we're going to decorate the Christmas tree and how it represents Jesus and the history of it, have the children do it and share, and then of course we're going to have some gifts for them and plenty of food. So we're looking for a great time. So if you can join us, of course, that's Saturday in the park from 11 to 1. And just thank you all for your help and support, and particularly man, we have been blessed by our police and fire department, and how the people and the children really respond to them being there. And then the fire trucks and the chief and all of them out there just had a great time. So just thank you all. It's an honor to serve with you. And any way we can help, just let us know, okay? And have a great Christmas, and may you be filled with peace. One thought as a chaplain, a revelation of what's going on in the spirit. I was in Walmart shopping a couple of years ago, and I'm standing there ready to shop out, and all of a sudden I get all this anxiety and just, all uptight. And I said, Lord, what's going on? He said, this is the spirit in here. Then I go back, and my wife had been shopping, got in the car, and it all came in with her. So don't let the anxiety and the things of it, just let the love of the Lord and love on one another, and it'll all be good. Let the peace of Christ rule in your heart. Enjoy what God meant Christmas to be, okay? Lord bless you. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Next person signed up is Mr. David Mueller. Welcome.
Thank you all. Merry Christmas to all of you. I got a couple items. They're all over the road here anyway. But I'd like to see if we could get at least a 3-month view on a city calendar, so that it could allow other people to prepare for the dates and those kinds of things. Back in May, June timeframe, I brought it to the city's attention about the calculation within the permit system, and that there was overcharges being done, and they agreed that was the case. And I'd just like to know how that refund process is going. Has that a report been set up to track that? Has a liability been established in the balance sheet to determine what, if any, what amount, and where we stand with those refunds? I'd like to know where that is. Also, I'd like to see more updates on the financials. At least the last time I looked, the last date was 7/22 of the financial information out there. I'd like to see that, it's supposed to be every month. Also, Penny for Pasco, I believe that was passed. I'd like to look at opportunity to reprioritize some of those funds for infrastructure replacement, specifically some of the water pipes that are being in disrepair. I'd like to look at an opportunity there. With regard to the water reports, the last water report I saw out there was dated 3/30 of 21. I would also like to see updates on that as well. And minutes for committees, I'd like to see those added to the website as well, just like these minutes are added. Just as a follow-up, you spoke my neighbor spoke last week, or the last meeting, about the palm tree that's in the middle of the Blue Point Circle. And basically no action was taken. I just wanted to bring to your attention that the city has gone ahead and painted the thing now, so it looks nice and everything, but if it was decided to tear it down or remove it, then you're kind of spending good money after bad. Don't know where that stands. I'm just bringing it to your attention. And that's all I have. You guys have a Merry Christmas.
That's all that's signed up, but I see there's multiple people here today, so I wanted to afford anyone else the opportunity to speak. By show of hands, would anyone else like to speak? Seeing no hands, we're going to move on to the next item or section, which would be commentary from our city manager. I'd like to invite Mr. Duke to speak at this time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had an opportunity to meet with Pasco County project manager, a couple of long-range planners, and their economic growth program manager. Ongoing discussion about the trolley project that they are working on and how that trolley would run up and down Grand Boulevard through Newport Ritchie, and then cross 19 and circle around through the Cody River Landing area. So at the end of that meeting, they had just received an email or a text that they may have grant funding approved for the trolley project. Obviously, it's still in very preliminary stages, but they wanted the Port Ritchie's involvement and ideas about that. So that was moving forward. I had an opportunity to discuss the Cody River Landing area, the project in general, what we're planning there, what's coming, and also had an opportunity to talk a little bit about the county's plans and project on the south side of the river with the two properties that the county has purchased. Obviously, that one is in very preliminary stages as well. So a good meeting, some tangible outcomes from that. Part of that, the program manager for economic growth is working on brownfield grant funds, and the city may have an opportunity to participate in that. It'll be a county-wide project. Identifying, the first step is grant money to identify possible brownfield sites. And then once they're identified, then a second grant project to fund mitigation and cleanup of identified brownfield sites. So my staff and I are working on that in collaboration with the county. City clerk attended the Supervisor of Elections and Pasco County Association of City Clerks meeting. Excuse me. And of note, she was elected president of that organization. So I wanted to say congratulations to the clerk, or condolences. I'm not sure which. Sometimes it's a little
there
of
late,
both.
didn't you?
So she is now the president of the Pasco County Association of City Clerks. Congratulations to her. Had a chance to get an update from AIRS. They are continuing to work with Duke, SwiftMud, and FDOT. They've addressed all of SwiftMud's plan comments, and so now the ball back in SwiftMud's court to finalize their approvals. AIRS has provided plan updates to FDOT. They've addressed all of FDOT's questions, comments, and so again, it's back with FDOT for their final approval. And with Duke, AIRS has provided plan updates based on Duke's comments about lighting and structure and locations. AIRS is going to have a site meeting with Duke. They're going to go out to the Cody River Landing area and walk the area and kind of look at it physically to make sure that what we're putting on paper will actually work where they're at. So all three of those entities, AIRS is awaiting their final approval. They would expect to have those final approvals by the end of December, and if that timeline is met, then bid packets ready to go between the middle and end of January. So still not moving dirt, but the papers are flying back and forth and projects moving forward. In your packet this evening is a copy of the Limestone Pier timeline that we received from Coastal Design. Of note, now obviously this is months and months of what ifs and did it rain and all of that, but everything works according to plan. Completion of construction by September of 24. Apparently it takes a while to design, plan, build, permit a fishing pier. But that's the timeline. They're working on design right now, and that project is moving forward. I've been in contact with a group of business owners and managers from the Cody River Landing area. We plan to get together early in January. I'll update them on the Cody River Landing project, get some of their feedback and their input, but was glad to see them kind of self-organize. They put that together themselves and came to me to see if I would be willing to bring them up to speed. So obviously I am, and glad to see them starting to take an interest in what we're doing there.
Relative to the consent order from DEP, the first deadline for our responses is 17 December. That's this Saturday. We sent our responses today, and so 3 or 4 days early. Hopefully that gives DEP staff a couple of days to provide any feedback if they have that before the deadline. We'll be meeting with Stantec on Friday to continue the work on the rate study. We've provided them a good deal of information from our current rates and structures and processes, and so we'll be meeting with them to take next steps on that project. Still working on a street maintenance project, dividing up the project, identifying the appropriate maintenance interventions for the appropriate ratings. iWorks is helping us with that since they're the one that did the survey initially. So that project continues to move forward. We did go out for quotes on street marking. I know that's been a priority of the mayor and several on the council. We got quotes back, and based on the quotes, we'll have to put bid packets together and put that out as bids. Turns out it's expensive to mark streets and much higher than I had anticipated, but we will put bid packets together and have that bid out. That gets me to the end of my list. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Stand for your questions.
Thank you. We're gonna, I think, move on to commentary from the board. I'm gonna start with our vice mayor and invite Mr. Kinsella to speak.
The one question I have on the site visit that Ayers is having with such as Duke, would the city have a representative there as well?
Yes. Yeah, I'll be invited to that. We'll go out and
Okay,
meet with them on site.
thank you. That's all.
I have a question regarding the schedule. Oh, sorry, I guess it's mine. I had a question regarding the Limestone Drive pier replacement. Right now, their schedule shows they're being completed the 2nd of September. If I recall, for the reimbursement of funds, they have to have our cash out the door by October of 24. Is that
I
correct?
believe it was December.
December 31st?
Yeah, okay, till the end of the year.
Okay, so there was some,
Hey, we're watching that too.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just don't want to get caught up. So that was all I had.
Okay. Councilwoman Rodriguez, anything?
I just had a quick question about the noise complaints on the report. There were 6 of them. Were they commercial or residential?
Commercial.
They were all commercial. Is it the same ones as that we've been having trouble with all along?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Do we have a plan?
Yes, sir.
I just didn't know. I know they've complained, the residents have complained over there a lot over the, past couple of years, so I just didn't know if it was the same complaint.
We've been getting some in Washington as well regarding early starting of construction and things, and we've gone out and tried to mitigate that. We've actually sat out there prior to, and they're starting when they're supposed to start. So when we get them, we go look into them.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Colombo, or Councilman Colombo, you're here, you're still on Zoom? All right, we'll come back to him can you check and see if he's on? Okay. I had a few things. The first one is during COVID, the fire department applied for a reimbursable grant where we put out, I think it was at least 25,000 up front, and then it was, I think, more, and it's supposed to be a reimbursable grant for the COVID-19. And I wanted to know if we've been reimbursed, or the status of the reimbursement on that grant money.
Yes, we're reimbursed.
Okay, so we've received all that. The other thing that I had a question about, I had multiple residents contact me, and apparently there was some event where they had grand close off, the city did, on Friday about 7 o'clock in the evening, December 9th. And I wanted to know if there was some kind of emergency fire, what happened over there where we had Grand Boulevard closed off.
I'm not aware of that, chiefs.
And it was the fire department that I think that had the road closed, so I wanted to know what happened over there.
Yeah,
have to look into it, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. And if somebody knows, they can answer the question.
I met with the owner of the garage in Green. His name is Peter, and he had wanted to do a toy drive to gather toys to give to Pastor Lord to disperse during the holiday season. He needed us for about 20 minutes. We obliged. He never mentioned anything about any kind of golf cart parade, which apparently is what happened. We had a meeting, myself and Captain Koch and him, and that was never mentioned. And it's going to take place. It's supposed to be a toy drive. You stuff them in the cruiser, take them right across the street to the fire department and drop them off, and they do the donations to Pastor Lord. And that was the end of it. So as far as road closures, I'm going to assume, and I know you're not supposed to assume, but I would assume that if you had the number of golf carts that I was told, because I asked about it afterwards on Monday, of 100 to 150, if that's the case, you're going to have to take some sort of precautions to maintain the safety of the operators. So if the officers were there and saw that happen, because they were not aware that was going to happen, they would have to take some action. But they never say anything about closing the road.
December 9th, you said?
Yeah.
That is the night of the garage, right?
Was the fire department aware that there was a parade going on and road closures and that sort of thing?
There was a toy drive, we were aware of a toy drive.
Okay. And my concern is you have fire vehicles blocking off Grand Boulevard. I think law enforcement was there, and I was confused because normally in an event like that, wouldn't it be, just going off of just basics, wouldn't be law enforcement be responsible for closing the road, opening the road, and directing traffic versus the fire department?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it brought up another issue because I've had several businesses ask me if there was a city ordinance policy about having law enforcement or fire attend an event that they had to help them with, specifically road closures, crowd control, and all that. And my answer has always been, from what I know, that as a city, if they want additional law enforcement, that they have to hire off-duty. Is that still the city policy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a process for that. Chief and I get those occasionally and process them.
Okay.
So, but it would necessitate that somebody actually follow the process.
Okay. Is there a process to have, for example, a road closure for some kind of event for a business? Is there a policy or procedure? Because I've been asked several times now, and my answer, frankly, is no, I don't think we can do it as a city. We can't just close a road for a business to have an event. And that's always been my answer to the general public or businesses. But, if I'm wrong, I want to know so I can correct that. So, and my concern is that we let business A have an event, close the road, fire department's there, police department there, and we participate. And then business B a week later says, well, I want to do an event, and we say no. Because I think we have to be, as a city, equal across the board, particularly when we're dealing with social services and taxpayers' money, fire, police. So I just wanted to know what the policies and procedures are so that we can pass that to the businesses, because I've been asked, like I said, by several different businesses because you have particularly bars and restaurants cropping up around the city between Grand all the way over to the Waterfront Overlay District. And I just want to make sure that we have a consistent policy and procedure across the board as a city as it relates to our city resources, our fire and police.
I'll look into that with the chiefs.
Okay.
I don't have an answer for you.
Okay.
But I'll get you an answer.
Okay, and would you be, because we're not meeting again for another, 5 weeks?
Right.
Would you be willing to put that together for me?
Sure.
Because I did want to get with the constituents that had asked me about that and the other businesses to tell them whether or not they can do it, one, and number two, what the procedure or policies are as it relates to that.
I'll put that together and get it out to the council.
Thank you.
Regarding that parade, I will say that there was a lot of positive comments that I had gotten about that they really did enjoy it. And he did it last year. I know he did it last year. Whether or not the road was closed, I don't know. And I think this is, since we are becoming more business friendly, I think we need to look at it as a city, whether there is a policy, I agree, and look at how we want to continue to view and do those things, do those events.
No, and I
So I'm just, yes.
And I just want to make sure we're on the same page, because
Right.
I've been telling businesses, no, we don't get involved in private events at a restaurant and that's always been, from what I understand, kind of the city policy, and that's always what I've told business owners. And then, I wasn't aware that happened out there, so when I had some people ask about it, I know that the next thing that's going to happen is that businesses that I've told, no, we don't do that, they're going to ask, how come business A did, and you've told me no at this point, and
I think it's something that's growing. I think, I think we're growing as a city with waterfront overlay district and Cody River Landing. I think we're growing, and I think those things have to be addressed.
And here's the difference. We had a 4th of July event, but that was something the city put on. We sat up here, we said, we're going to organize this. We as a city are going to have input from and it's not going to benefit 1 or 2 or 3 businesses. It's going to be for the people in the city.
Right.
Okay?
Absolutely.
And frankly, I think we should have more of that. And I think that, if whether it's the businesses or the citizens want more involvement or more events, that we should do that as a city rather than have business A or business B try and put something together. And, I think that's more of a problem if we do it the way that unfolded, whatever happened on the 9th. Which brings me to my next issue. A lot of our citizens loved the 4th of July fireworks. And I know it costs the city some money, but it's something that I think most of our citizens like. I've had a lot of citizens say, why wouldn't we have one on New Year's or another time of year and have 2 city events annually instead of just one? And I didn't know if that's something you guys would be interested in talking about on the dais, having another city-sanctioned event, whether it involves fireworks or something else, one for New Year's at the park, and then of course we do the one on the 4th of July.
I presume you don't mean this New Year.
No, I'm talking about for the next fiscal budget year, which gives over a year to plan and budget and all that sort of thing. And I didn't know if you guys would be interested as a group to talk about that, number one. And number two, whether or not, because I know the CIC, one of the things they do is they reach out to the general public to get more information, because I only hear from a handful of people here and there. The CIC, I think, has more outreach to the general public, so I wanted to know their position on that. So I didn't know if the rest of the diocese is okay discussing that at some point.
I think it's a great idea, and tying it in with Cody River Landing. I mean, since Waterfront District, and that's where we did it, and you're tying it in with that whole thing and our revamping of it, it'll be brand spanking new. I think it's a great idea.
I
Next
also
year's.
think, the Cody River Landing will probably be unofficially open by then
Right.
and done, hopefully. You have the Cody River Business District. Granted, it's not but they're going to have a year to practice on something, assuming it's successful this year. By next year, it should be rolling pretty good. A nice fireworks display at that next New Year's would probably be something special that could really start drawing a lot of people.
I agree.
And the comment that I had, there's a lot of people in the community that have families, children, that don't necessarily go to the bars or go where they serve alcohol. But one of the things they really like about the 4th of July event in the park is there's no alcohol. So you can bring your kids and you can have a nice family event sanctioned by the city in the park. Now, if people leave afterwards and go to the Waterfront Overlay District, that's fantastic, that's great. But, my thought is it would be really nice as a city to have an event on New Year's where people can go as a family and have a place to go and use the park. The park's beautiful up there.
Absolutely.
And I'm hoping that, like I said, I think that if we're going to do things, we shouldn't do it for particular bars, but we should do it as a city and have city-sanctioned events if the police and the fire and everyone's going to be involved. So that was just kind of my take. And, with that, that's all I had. That was just my opinion. And so if we can have that on the next meeting or two, I don't think it's time sensitive, so we can.
I'll do 2 things. One, I'll put it on on the first meeting in January on the agenda. For a couple of reasons. One, there's a lot more discussion that you all obviously want to have, but secondarily, if we're going to have fireworks on the 4th of July, we need to say that right now so that we can secure a vendor, because those guys are booked up, and you know, if we wait till March, April, May, there won't be anybody for the first week of July, much less the 4th. So I'll put it on as a decision item, and you all say, yes, we want fireworks on whatever the date is in July, so that we can go out to the vendors and say we want it. The other thing we'll need to do is put it into the budget discussion. If we're going to add a second fireworks event, the last one, the fireworks themselves were $10,000 or $11,000, and the other expenses were another 8 or 10 or 12. If we're talking about New Year's Eve, we're talking about holiday pay, and all of your staff being on holiday pay, not all of them, but a lot of staff to run that event is going to take them out of their homes and put them to work on a holiday. So I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm just saying there's more to think about, the money, the personnel, but that's a budget and management conversation to have in February, March, April, to talk about New Year's Eve fireworks. So I'll do both of those things.
All right, yep, and if we elect not to do it because it's budgetary issues, that's a different issue, and I'm fine with that. But I at least wanted to give you some, because we have 5 weeks till the next meeting, which gives us a little time to look at it and to get feedback from the public. Because if the public's coming in saying, look, it's too much money for what it is, and it is what it is. If the majority of the public's coming in and saying we like it, we want to bring the family down there, and if we pay a few extra dollars, and so be it. That's hopefully feedback that we get. Very good. So. Yes.
In the 5 weeks, can you put together a rough budget estimate of what you feel the New Year's Eve cost would be, including overtime, et cetera,
I'll do
as
that.
compared to July 4th or weekend of July 4th?
Yep, I can do that.
I'm sorry, that's all that I had in general commentary. I wanted to go back to see if Mr. Colombo's here virtually.
Yes,
Is he?
he can hear us, yes.
Mr. Colombo, are you able to speak?
He's not on mute either. I don't know.
Okay. If you don't mind, just work on that, and then we'll come back. Because I don't know what we're going to do when we get to action items. If you can't vote, I guess
You have a quorum here.
Okay.
You call them on the phone and ask them.
I guess. Okay. So let's move on to boards and committees. I had one person that was signed up on a board and committee, and that was Mr. Mueller. Welcome.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Just a couple points. This Thursday, our committee is having a light judging contest. Light Up Port Richey. There you go. And that will be this Thursday night. So have your porch lights on, your Christmas lights on. We will be making a round through the city, judging to basically establish a winner for our first annual Light Up Port Richey. My second, what's that? I'm not sure we're stopping in and knocking doors. We're going to do a drive-by. We have a caravan of 3 convertibles, and we're going around. Hopefully we won't have rain. That'll be earlier in the day. But that was the objective, is to try to get that accomplished. We're meeting here at 7 p.m. And hopefully be back here by 9 p.m. so that we can identify and agree on a winner. Okay.
Can I ask one question? Can we get like a map?
So you can stay in the city.
Yeah, because there's a lot of disconnected parts, and if we could get, at least 3 of them, so that we could, we have 3 cars. Yeah. The next item, and like the mayor, I get approached by a lot of people say, hey, what about this, what about that? And that's quite frankly why I joined the Citizens Advisory Committee, because it is an opportunity to meet neighbors, get their interest, and try to relay that information back to a group that will respond to them, okay? This one might be pretty easy fix. Potholes at Nix Park. Is there a way that we can get those patched? A lot of cases, it might just be an asphalt or a concrete patch. But I took the liberty of taking quite a few pictures of there, I think 6 or 7. And I know that we're in the process of revamping the roads or whatever. But within the park, I don't believe the scope of the work addressed that directly. But that's something, coming right out of the ramp. There is a huge pothole there, and people have, like I said, complained or brought the issue to my attention, and I'm doing likewise. I'm just the messenger here, and I think that's something that could be a quick hit with a lot of neighbor benefit. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Looking for a motion and/or any questions or commentary.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. This time, we're going to move on to council business, and we're going to go to 5105 Bay Boulevard demolition appeal, and I'm going to pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an issue that the city staff have been working on. Our building official, Mike Alexander, is here, and Mr. Matthew has spent a good deal of time on this too. So invite Mr. Alexander to bring us up to speed on where we are at this point.
The moving party, which is the appeal, kind of speak first?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is invite the folks to introduce yourselves.
I'd have the building official sit up here somewhere, wherever,
It doesn't matter.
He's
In
gonna
front of a
answer
mic
questions a
somewhere.
lot. He's gonna be up and down, I presume, numerous times tonight.
Would you be willing to relinquish your seat in front of the microphone, please? Yes, please. Just for this one item. Thank you.
So we can answer council
Correct.
questions.
We'll swap back after
This one particular item.
This is an appeal filed by the owner of the property. Their counsel is here.
Yes.
A petition for appeal, it's in the packet before you. It was originally filed with the county by mistake. This appeal is under section 14-132, these papers somewhere. And this appeal is based upon that the structure does not meet the criteria for demolition set out in 14-127, which is it shouldn't be demolished. So at that point, turn it over to this attorney for the owner.
And if I may, first of all, can you introduce all the parties so I can have all the names?
Yes, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here, number one, and I'm unfamiliar with your procedure, so we'll just plow right through as may be appropriate. I'm Marshall Reisman. I represent Rosalie Selak. I'm her attorney. My address is 1700 66th Street North, St. Petersburg, Florida, 33710. This is Ms. Selak. It has been in poor health and is unable to be here, and that's one of the reasons why things have gotten to the point they are, and it's taken this long to fix the premises. Rosalie Selak is the owner. Czilak. Okay. This is her son, Jesse Uber. He is a construction foreman. He has stepped up, and along with general contractor Alec Barr.
James Barr, yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Have stepped up and have fixed the problems, albeit and not as timely as we all might like. And we'll say, I don't want to use the sound glib in any way, but better late than never. But the problems have been resolved. I did speak with Ms. Buggy this afternoon. I sent her some photographs that were provided to me by Mr. Uber. They're prepared to discuss exactly what was wrong, exactly what has been done, and exactly where we're going from here. And also, I would interject that Mr. Uber is about to take title to the property and put it up for sale. So hopefully we won't have these problems in the future, and hopefully you'll see fit to find that the problems have been rectified.
Before we go any further, I think there's one thing that I need to put on the record. Rosalie Sislak is a client that I've had with my law practice outside of my law firm. I don't know if you are aware of that.
Not specifically.
Put that on the record because I think that's certainly important here. And I think that for me, probably on both ends, between my law practice and my position here as mayor, may create some ethical issues or problems with me presiding over or hearing an appeal that has to do with the property. And I wanted to know, let me ask counsel first, if you think that there would be a conflict there.
You obviously think there'll be a conflict, so
Yeah.
it's enough for me. I don't know what the nature of representation was, but clerk can give you a voting slip. And that doesn't mean you can't conduct the meeting.
Okay.
Just to make this go simpler, Mr. Reisman says that certain work's been done. I don't know, you might want to inquire of building official if he knows anything about that at this point in time, make it go easier.
I'm sorry, I have a little trouble hearing.
This work's been done, a lot of the work's been done.
Yes.
Okay.
And these gentlemen could testify to that and specifically.
Whether he knows any of that yet, he isn't, whether he knows any of it, has inspected it or no,
It just got brought to my attention today that work had been completed there. I would like to have been notified of some structural issues that were being repaired, because I believe, both being contractors, you probably should have pulled a permit for these kind of things, but we can address that on a sidebar later. I guess, you sent the pictures in. I have not had an opportunity to see the pictures, but I will be in the office tomorrow if you guys want to meet me there and we can take a look at this stuff. So that's all I can say at this point, because I haven't had a chance to see the pictures.
I appreciate that.
So what I would like to do is, since they're here already, let them testify about what they've done to remedy some of the issues, and then see if we can move it later. Just let them to talk about what they've done, and then we'll continue it later to let him go out and revisit it. And
My only question was, do you know all the items that were outstanding regarding that specific residence? I'd say probably 90% of them. Okay, so if they ran through the list, you would say they have most of it or they have half of it? Right. But this is only exterior things. I don't know anything about the interior. We had set up a meeting to meet on site and do interior investigation to see if there was any mold or any, roof leaks that have come through, but that meeting never happened. No one ever showed. So I can only attest to what I know on the outside at this point.
Can I just, for council clarification, this isn't a code enforcement matter. This is an order for demolition. Okay, the building's valuable. There's a mortgage company that was noticed here. They're an interested party, and a decision was made, I believe, by your predecessor, Mike, right, to enter an order of demolition under Section 3 of the code, of our code, that the structure or a portion thereof, as a result of decay, deterioration, or dilapidation, is likely to fully or partially collapse. That's the violation. Okay, and then an order was entered requiring for our code and almost all codes, for the owner to demolish the building within so much time. That didn't happen. It's over a year ago. Reason it took so long. And so now you're here. So what's being decided is, and the appeal is, that no, this building now is not likely to fully or partially collapse. So what Mike's saying is, well, I don't know, I haven't seen it. So I presume these gentlemen will testify to some things. He's willing to meet with one if you want to. He's not going to make a decision. You can't make a decision now, okay, because it isn't like just one of that simple thing. So they should put it on, and then you can decide whether you want to give some more time, let them see it, and come back. Does that work for you, Mr. Reisman? I presume you'd agree to that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't know how many sets. I only have a couple sets of the photos, and I'll be happy to.
The clerk first, looking for a motion to accept this.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Is it,
All in
is it
favor?
one second?
I abstain from voting on any of these issues.
He says the contractor is general contractor, that's
And then I'll pass this around so
licensed.
they can-
Okay,
Okay, if he's the son, okay, we can, you know, I want to know the details.
I got you.
So this is the completed work.
Yes, and these gentlemen could speak to it much more knowledgeably than I can.
I think it's more important that he get a copy.
Yeah.
Before we get
No, I
it.
just wanted to
Yeah,
get
that's
them
the
in,
second set right there.
I just wanted to get them into the
So I
evidence
just want you to
first.
just give him a second to look at it, might be easier.
And just to clarify too, so today's actually my first day coming on with this.
If
So
you
I'm,
could approach the
oh
microphone.
yeah, my apologies.
What I would like both you gentlemen to do, if you don't mind, is to introduce yourselves and give us your credentials and qualifications.
Yes.
Just lay a foundation about your licenses, your businesses, I think you have numbers for those, don't you? License numbers and all that. If you can give us that information, then so we can just build the record for you.
Yep. Yeah. So.
And then we'll get into the details of what's done.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so my name is James Barr. I'm a certified general contractor here in the state of Florida, CGC 1531339, owner and founder of Florida Teal Specialty Builders, local construction company for the area. So today's my first day actually coming on with this project, so I haven't touched the property. Actually, I haven't physically been to the property. I've seen photographs, videos, pretty good review of what was done, what the existing is of the structure, and just here to give a little bit of professional testimony as to what I think is actually happening here.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yep, and I am more than willing, so as far as moving forward with permitting and things like that, more than happy to get involved with this project.
Thank you.
My name's Jesse Uber. My address is 4059 Kukiniki Drive, Southeast, St. Petersburg, Florida, 33705.
Thank you. And you said that you had some background as well?
Oh, yeah, I'm Alec Barr's foreman for Florida Teal Specialty Builders.
So you practice under his licenses?
I do.
Okay. Do you have any licenses of your own?
No.
Thank you.
May I ask you a question? You said you haven't seen this building before today.
Not in person, no, sir.
Who did the work?
I did.
So you did the work under his license?
No. I did the work as my mother's son. I just went there and did it because it needed to be done. The homeowner, yeah.
Can you guys are here, can you explain some of the work that you did?
Okay, so to my understanding, this was just brought to really my attention about 10 days ago-ish. And I was told that the third floor veranda decking was collapsing, the railings were falling down, the grass needed to be cut, the air conditioning stand was collapsing, and they're worried about it falling and somebody getting hurt. So what we did was went to the property, we evacuated the air conditioning lines, we disconnected the air conditioner, capped the lines, put the air conditioner inside the house, took down the stand, went to the third floor, got the 3/4 inch tongue and groove subflooring, put it up on the, removed the old plywood off of the third-story veranda, replaced it, refastened the railings down. So, and I have videos and pictures of everything that we've done. And I also have a video of the inside of the house, but I'm happy to show you the inside of it. It's beautiful on the inside. Don't look nothing like it does on the outside, but. And there's no leaks in the ceiling either. The roof's completely fine.
Okay. Because what I think that council's recommending for
Yeah,
the
well, see how Mike feels about it.
Well, I'd like to see it. I mean, I appreciate that they brought pictures in, but like I said, it's dark. So I can't see the whole, the whole thing. In regards to the AC, did you cap that off? You did all that?
Yes.
Okay. It's supposed to be done by a licensed contractor because you can't let the.
The EP, yeah.
Okay. So let's set up a time. I mean, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to set up a time to go out and actually physically see it in person. The building department is not, we're not looking to demo the building per se. We're following guidelines. I mean, we're willing to work with them to get the work done. And so.
Can we push this till next?
Yeah. Just, let me address that. Yes, you had that authority. I presume that's where this is gonna go. But just for the record, as the record before us, there was emails, there was a time set up to do all of this 6 months ago. This has been languishing for a year now. Okay, and the only reason it languished for a year is because the city neglected to follow the rules and notify the interested parties. And so if you're gonna schedule this, I'm just telling the council, you know, we'll put it on the next meeting.
Put it on for the next
As
meeting.
long as Mr. Reisman agrees, it's his petition, I presume he will.
Let me ask this. Let's presume, because we have a different building official, there's been work done, that he goes out there and he says, and our building official satisfied that this building is not gonna cave in, collapse, whatever, not dangerous anymore. Can he just withdraw the order from within the city and not even come back to council?
You don't do that at the moment this council votes to do that. It's probably appeal, the order's already been entered, okay? So you can withdraw the order.
So
If you wanna vote, give him the authority to do that, that's up to the
I'd
council.
rather we come back.
I feel be a little more pleased they come back here and do that in case there's a mistake.
We'll get his full report on what he feels, what he sees, and then we'll decide it in January.
Right. And if he comes back and does that, you can, you know, talk to Mr. Dude, maybe you could have Mr. Raxton appear by phone or something.
Yeah,
If he's got a positive thing that he's willing to dismiss the order of demolition.
Right, if it's not contentious, I would think that.
Well, if he's
Right.
he's gonna do it, I presume, could city council, you're gonna follow, yeah, I presume you're gonna follow what he says. So does that work for you, Mr. Rice?
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
So you guys gonna meet tomorrow?
Well, it's up to these gentlemen. I'm just the messenger.
I'm available Wednesday or Friday.
All right, my little brother lives in Newport Richie, so I can have him let you in.
Okay, just let me know what time. Like I said, I'm here for 8 to 2 on Wednesdays and Fridays.
8 to 2? Okay, I'll probably be around
Just
8.
give us a call.
Probably around 8, but okay. I'll have him contact you. Yeah.
And then inside as well, correct? Make sure that the ceiling's good.
Correct.
Stuff like that. Okay.
And would you like for me to be at that meeting? I plan
If
to
you
get.
want, you're gonna be the license holder. full
Yes, sir.
member.
Yeah, I plan to get involved for whatever repairs
That's
event happens, so
Okay,
I'll come on
that's
too. Okay.
Great. And do we have a date that this is rescheduled to?
We do, it's the second Tuesday in January, because it's always the second Tuesday.
Okay.
And we'll send an order out since we have to have a decision, it's a matter of that decision.
January 10th. Great. Very good. Thank you very much. Anything else?
You have no problems with the building official and the contractors doing it?
Oh, no. Communications, everything.
Thank you, Mr. Reisman.
Thank you.
I'll be here in order. I'm not comfortable with them. That building's not that bad. I wish we ripped that down.
Right.
So you may want to have this conversation. Thank you. We're all on the same page.
Okay.
This is something like. I got it.
The next item up is the first reading of ordinance 22685 to change the liquor, beer, or sales times, which was item 4 on council business. I'm going to invite Mr. Matthew to talk about that item.
Yeah.
And I have it here for you.
Okay. This will be the first reading by title only of the ordinance number 22-65. We discussed this at the last meeting. We're taking out the blue law in the city of Port Richey. You look here, you see the 4 changes which we discussed at the last meeting. Now, alcohol sales would be regulated, at least in terms of the city's regulation, to be the same as any other day, which takes it down from 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning as every other day, except for Saturdays, which we discussed. And so you'll see us stricken the 11 o'clocks and put in the 7 o'clocks. And let me read it by title only. Ordinance number 22-685, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Port Richey, State of Florida, amending the City Code of Ordinances, Chapter 4, Alcoholic Beverages, Article 1 in general, Section 4-3, hours of sale, providing for severability, inclusion in code, and an effective date. Looking for a motion for the ordinance for first reading.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 22-685 to change the liquor and beer sales times.
Second.
Before we vote,
Public, yeah.
there's the
And Bill
public.
too, yeah.
The public is here, so I wanted to open this up for any kind of public commentary. I didn't see where anyone signed up, but I wanted by show of hands if anyone would like to speak. Mr. Mueller, welcome. Come on up.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. Just a point of clarification under section 4.3 or 4-3 hours of sale. We go to great lengths to define when the premises between consumption on premises between the hours of not dispense between 2 a.m. and 7 a.m. on weekdays and between the hours of 2 a.m. on Sunday and 7 a.m. on Sunday, but we don't talk about Saturday. I'm wondering, does that mean that you can sell liquor and beer all day long and all night long on Saturday, or do we need to just reword that so we can say that any time between the hours of 2 and 7 on any day of the week, rather than to go this long, big paragraph about that and miss Saturday? Or is it the intent to actually sell during that period of time? It's up to you. Thanks.
I think we had a full discussion on that before we passed that, so thank you, Mr. Mueller. Any commentary from the dais? No. Are we ready to vote? Before we vote, is Mr. Colombo on
Via phone, yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm on the phone if you can hear me.
Okay, all in favor?
Did you hear the motion?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes.
It'll come back for second reading at the next meeting.
Thank you. All right, so now the next item is the fence code discussion. I think that the dais agreed, or asked the city management to put on. I'm going to pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council did ask that we have a discussion of fence code. And so what Mr. Matthew and staff have done is collect all of the code that is relevant to fences and other structures. Those are in your packet. And so, having introduced it, I think it's up for you to discuss.
Okay. I would like to kind of open the discussion. And I think Mr. Colombo may have been on the dais way back. I think there was a mayor back then by the name of Eloise Taylor. And I think that at her time, when she was on the dais, they spent a lot of resources to put the city code together as it related to fence in those ordinances. So I know that we're kind of revisiting something that the city put a lot of money and resources in to get it to where it is now. So that having been said, personally, I'm a little wary about going back through the code to look at potential changes when I think that as a city we've paid a lot of money in the past to have it where it sits now. That having been said, I don't have a problem having a discussion if we want to clarify some of the finer points. But I personally, the way that I see the code now, I don't see where I would think there would be any changes necessary. But I wanted to open it up for discussion to kind of see where everyone's at.
Yeah, when I brought this up, we brought up the fact that I think we need to start looking at some of the codes that the people were complaining about. Okay. And we decided to pick this one first as an easy one to address.
And I guess, and here's my take and why I said that. I don't think that the code itself is the issue. When I drive through the city, I see boats, I see trailers, I see, frankly, things that aren't up to the current code, and people do complain, as they should, because I think that the issue is enforcement and not the way that the code sits as it is. I think, for example, there was complaints about something that looked very commercial on a residential piece of property.
Correct.
I don't think that's a code issue as much as an enforcement issue or a permitting issue. In other words, I think the question should be, when you look at a specific item like that, which brought us to where we're at, is whether or not that building should be permitted, and whether or not it's up to code as it sits now, not whether or not we should change the code.
It is up to code.
Okay,
for
so
our building official.
Okay, so then the next step is is that what we want the city to look like? I guess is where we're going with this.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's for
Okay.
us five to determine.
And that wasn't necessarily on the fence issue, that was on the actual building issue on someone's property.
Correct.
Okay. That having been said, I'm gonna open it for discussion, because those are kind of my thoughts on it.
My thought is, I think the code is an evolving process. You know, when Eloise Taylor was here, I believe that was 10, 15 years ago at that point, we just changed a code that someone thought was a great idea to not have liquor on Sundays. So obviously times have evolved, so our code should evolve. I can speak, and you know, for instance, our code currently says you can have two 10 by 10 structures, they cannot connect, and you can have no more than 2 by 10 accessory structures on properties. It makes no sense. It doesn't abide by any other areas around us. So I agree that they may have put a lot of effort and resources into it, but some of what they put forward really makes no sense in this time. It may have made sense 15 years ago, but it doesn't make sense now. So I think it's part of incumbent upon us and on our code and department and our building department to make sure that we stay up to standards for zoning and building throughout the city and make us compliant with either adjacent areas or, you know, God forbid, even spearhead into new areas that produces a better product and a better living space for our citizens. So I really don't like the wholesale, well, our code is great, because really our code isn't great.
Well, let's back up to what you're saying. You don't like the fact that there's buildings that are restricted in zoning for size and how many you can have. We're a waterfront community, so we open that up, and now you have people putting buildings all over the property, blocking everyone's view. So,
I didn't say.
So there's a double-edged sword there. You're saying, you know, there's a reason that those were originally put in for those size and those zoning requirements were put in. And that's why our city looks the way it does. When you look at our city and you compare it to Holiday or Hudson on the waterfront, I think our city looks 10 times better than what the county's done with their waterfront property. And I think that's because we do have tighter zoning laws. And
So it's not that we don't have tighter zoning laws, it's a lot of that our zoning laws don't make a lot of sense in and of themselves. Anyone who's good at building can get around most zoning laws. You can put two 10 by 10 sheds and stick them right next to each other, as long as they don't touch. That gentleman who left can't say a word about it.
I understand.
So to me, whether it's two 10 by 10 structures or one 10 by 20 structure, what's the difference from that standpoint? Except a lot of people are being hampered by it because some people want to put a shed with a pergola attached. Oh, you can't do that. I wanted to do that. You can't do that. So instead, I put a canopy off of my primary house and put it all the way around. Guess what? No one could say anything to stop that.
Yeah, but that's all of us.
I understand that, but why don't we have take a evaluation of our codes and relook at all of them, because it is incumbent upon us to look at our codes and keep them up to date and see what makes sense for today's building environment and make sure we're keeping up to date with that.
If it doesn't need to be changed, then we won't change it. That's the whole point. Is to look at it and evaluate it.
Okay, Mr. Colombo.
Yeah, I would just like to, I would like to interject at this point. I know I'm over the phone. It may be difficult to hear me. Yeah, we have, I agree with Mr. McClary. Our codes are pretty much sort of a living document. There is no perfect code, and the reason we can amend codes is because you have a code, it exists for a while, and you look at it and you see, you know, maybe we might want to tweak it, maybe we might want to change it. The subject at hand right now is fence codes. That's what's on the agenda. I'm not really sure exactly what the issue was that put fence codes on the agenda. And if y'all looked at the backup material we got, as well as what I got, we got a whole bunch of stuff that I found out more about parking than I did about fence codes. You know, I could certainly interject something that had been brought to my attention by a couple of people. You could put up, say, a stockade fence next to a chain link fence, and they're right on the property line, and there's no way to cut the grass between them. You know, simple thing, but things that are annoying to certain people. There are changes that can be made. But as to, I just kind of want to nail down where we are right now in this discussion on the fence code, and are we nowhere at all?
Okay, so I guess to sum up, what you're saying is there's no issues that you have with the fence code as it exists. However, you think there's other parts of the code that may need to be revisited.
Well, I would say in a general sense, our city, just like any other city in the county, there's hardly a code out there that's perfect. That's our job. It's our job to periodically review codes and see if they can be tweaked, changed to, you know, accomplish the goals of what we want for our city. I don't have any out there. Like I said, the one thing that was brought up to me by a couple of people, again, was a person on one side of the property line puts up a stockade fence right next to a chain link fence, and there's 6 inches between them, and there's no way to trim the grass between them. Now, this is not a major issue, but it is an issue. I don't know if we might want to look at, setback requirements to where how far off the property line people can put up fences. But that's something, we're talking about fences. That's the agenda item. Sure I can come up with right now. But, as far as any other code, I've been a firm believer of, if somebody poses an issue and the issue is the code says something, and we look at the code. And having served on Board of Adjustment where people are looking for variances, if people are looking for a lot of variances, you wonder, are there valid variances, or should we look at the code? That's kind of the point I'm making.
No, and I understand that. We did that with the parking, for example. And we adjusted the parking spaces to be more in line with, what you see in Tampa and other areas as opposed to more rural areas by opening spaces up.
Exactly, yeah.
So, no, I understand that. And, but I'm not aware that we've had a lot of variance requests, from, at least from where I'm sitting. So, I think you're right. That is an indicator that we either maybe need to change or not change. That having been said, I think we've all kind of spoken. There's one person that I wanted to open the floor to. If our vice mayor wants to speak, Mr. Kinsella, I wanted your input on
One of the
this.
things I think we're on a topic that we really need the input of the citizens, what they really want. So, whatever we decide, I think it should be more listening to the citizens of what they want. So if it's a workshop that we need to have to get the input, yeah, I like to hear more from the citizens, whatever direction we go.
If I may, maybe another good point of input is with our building department and our code enforcement department, and see what, I'll say, hot topics arise from them on a daily basis. Oh, well, people, because they hear more of the complaints about our code in terms of what's building and than we would necessarily. So maybe some input from them in a future meeting saying, well, a hot item is the 2 sheds. A hot item is, everyone wants a 5-foot fence. We keep telling them it's a 4-foot fence. And then we give them a $500 bill to do a variance. And they say, well, I'm not going to pay a $500 fee for a 5-foot to a 4-foot. And maybe that's a good path forward in terms of looking at some of these codes for hot items and then start to go and investigate what to change or what to amend, if anything.
I did speak with Veronica about a month ago regarding and fences, sheds, and there was a third thing. Unfortunately, I can't remember, and I know she's not here tonight. But I think that's the way to go. To get residents' input. They go to the building department to get permits, and when they can't get it, so I think that would be a really good avenue is to that department in and see where our residents are looking for and they can't get because of the codes. So I think that's a really good idea. And pulling the building department in on that.
And I want to go on the other end of this. I think that individual homeowners want to do more with their home. And I understand that as a homeowner and I put a tiki hut out there and it's 10 by 10 because that's what the code calls for, right? So that's what it is. That having been said, it makes sense because I have a nice piece of property on the water. So if I put too much bigger than that, it block all my neighbors' views. So I understand why the code is what it is. So when you have an individual homeowner, I think that obviously they're saying we want to do more with our property, okay, and I think we can all identify with that. The other side of that is if they do more with their property, how does that affect the city as a whole and the neighbors and the views of what we have, which, you know, I think that we have some of the prettiest waterfront in the area, I mean, up and down the coast. And the reason why I think we have that is because you can't put more than a 4-foot chain fence. So you can see from if you drive down my street and look between houses, you can see all the way out across the bayou. And I think that's what gives this city the beauty that it has. And I think that if we say as a homeowner, we want to put privacy fences up, I think the homeowner loves that. It's great. You have a privacy fence around your pool. But I think as a community, I think that it impacts the value of the beauty of the city. So, I mean, I want to make sure that we're looking at both angles of this and not just from the homeowner standpoint. So that's the only thing that I'm concerned with. And then that also ties into, you know, before we've told people that they can only do A, B, and C. And if we change it, you know, I'm kind of not comfortable with that either, because for years we've told people you can only put your 4-foot chain fence on the water. So now I know you can say that they can go out and now put a privacy fence if that's what we decide. But
I'm not saying to necessarily do anything. I'm saying our code is a living document. We have to bring it up to snuff. You know, using your 10 by 10 tiki hut, fine. I can't put I can't do it. I want to do a 10 by 16 tiki hut. Oh, I can't. Oh, I can do 2 10 by 10 tiki huts. Fine. There. That it's the same blockage. It just doesn't make any sense conceptually from that standpoint. So I'm still blocking as much as I was before. You're still equally, you see my 2 now tiki huts instead of 1 tiki hut, and my 2 tiki huts are together, and now they're 10 by 20. Ha!
No, I get it, but then you can't have your shed because you have the 2 tiki huts.
I'll put a shed right next to it. It'll be 5 feet of shed.
You can only have 2 buildings.
No, I'll tie the shed right to my house. Then I have a shed now and 2 tiki huts. I mean, I can get around anything, so let's make the code make sense to what people are trying to get to, because they're going to get there anyway.
So I have
to add, you know, as to, obviously, this agenda is about fences, and now we're talking about sheds, but, you know, the concept that you can have 2 10 by 10 sheds, but you can't have a 10 by 10 by 20 is a bit hard to wrap your head around. The other thing we do have to keep in mind is our city encompasses a lot of properties that are of a very, very, very different nature. So, again, I found that particular kind of loophole in our code to be kind of bizarre. I know at least 2 folks in the city that have done exactly what Todd said. They couldn't get a 10 by 20, so they put up 2 10 by 10s. That seems pretty silly. But we have to keep in mind, I bring this up a lot, it's not just waterfront properties, it's properties on the east side. Let's just say there's waterfront properties, there's non-waterfront properties. They are of a different nature, and whether it's fences or whether it's sheds, we have to keep in mind what preserves the quality of life on their piece of property when we change codes.
And I'll put another example. We're talking about waterfronts. A couple of my neighbors have 2.5 acres. They're restricted to a 10 by 10 shed on 2.5 acres of property that no one ever sees. That makes no sense to them either.
I understand.
Yeah, I understand that too.
So that's where I'm trying to get at. I don't know how we got on that tangent from fences because there's no fence.
So let's back up. Do you guys see the value in going back into the fence code discussion? Because just looking on that particular issue, I don't see anything wrong with our fence codes, as they said. I tend to agree with having the codes as they are. And if the topics or the hot topics, which I think we've already kind of touched on, are going to be the sheds and what you can do to develop your property outside of a fence. If that's going to be the topic, do we want to just put that on and just dive into it?
I would like to get the feedback from the building department as to what are the hot topics.
Because if we can table this to the next meeting.
It's hard not being there, folks, but generally, the agenda item here is fence codes, and I've yet to hear anybody again, my connectivity is somewhat suspect, but give me any reason why we should be looking at defense codes anymore. But obviously, again, there are other codes that do bear looking at. And again, I've been a strong proponent of that over the years. You know, the codes are not written in stone. They're not in the charter. They're codes. We can change the codes. We look at them, we get input, and we make decisions. Is the code right the way it is, or should it be tweaked? And if that's the situation, then that's an agenda item for a future meeting.
I would like to ask to table this until we can get a building official here to answer some of our questions regarding the fence.
I agree with that. I think the building official, and to be honest with you, the code official should be here because he's driving around on a day-to-day basis, know what's going on.
Zoning, building, and code.
Yeah, I mean, they can answer these questions. I mean, I think that's, and unfortunately, yeah.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah.
So we're going to table this discussion until we have the right city personnel, and we'll reconvene.
We're gonna be here all night on the 10th of January.
Oh, thank God.
We could be here for 5 minutes and say that we don't want to change anything and roll on too.
It's a year away. Don't worry about it.
All right, so the next item, if I may move on, is going to be the discussion, which has a joint city-county meeting, which is held on January 23rd, or January 17th of 23. And I was going to pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The county commission will hold a joint city-county task force planning session on that date. Their county staff has reached out to me and asked for any topics that our city would like to have included on the agenda for discussion. This is a meeting that I attended a year ago. Hopefully one of you would be willing and able to attend. And that, I think that's kind of the county's hope too, that
What time is it? It's not
10 o'clock.
And historically, I used to go with the city manager in the past, but if someone else wants to go on my stead, there's no objection there either. So,
And I'm happy to join, but it's a much better conversation if one of the elected is the city's lead on that. But either way, I'll be happy to join. What the county is hoping to do is include any topics that you would like to have, and I would suggest there are things these are, where can we collaborate? What issues do we have where the city and the county can work together? What do we want from them?
well, there were a couple issues, whether I go or not, that I wanted to address. One of them is I know that there's been some talk about some form of public transportation that would run between some of our areas where we have bars and restaurants or waterfront area that would link to Newport Richey and then into the county. And I think that's at least something that we should address with them. I know that the MPO board, which I sit on, one of the probably hotter topics on the MPO, which was moved up to the top of the list, or towards the top of the list, I think, in the top 3, was they're still pursuing a golf cart trail or path, wanting to see if that can be constructed, which would impact the city. So if we're talking about it at the MPO, we should probably address it there as well, I would think. And then the other thing that we should at least touch on is that I know that they have stormwater projects that essentially move water historically that starts all the way in Moon Lake. They run it all the way down Ridge Road and it kind of dumps into our city. And that they have, I think, a multi-million-dollar study that has the same company that we've used at this point now, Syntec. And the issue is whether or not they're going to work with us and move that water all the way out to where the water runs out naturally, versus kind of end their project in the city where the water would just dump out into the city and flood the city out. So I think those are topics that we should at least talk with them about and join, because, you know, obviously, if they're going to put a lot of money into the infrastructure in the county, we need to work with them to make sure we're moving the water all the way out and it's not just bottling up in our city. So those would be the 3 items I think we should touch on, and I'll pass it to the rest of the dais if they have any issues. We'll start with Vice Mayor if you have any.
I have nothing.
The stormwater one was good, but I agree with that, absolutely. That, and the bike path, I know that's been ongoing for about 2 years. I think that's really, both really good ideas.
And Mr. Colombo, did you have anything?
My only addition is talking about running, like, say, a shuttle from Newport Richie down to our waterfront area. Yeah, obviously I'd be for that, but, you know, that could wind up being quite pricey. And yeah, I would be curious to know exactly who is committed to
That's the item, the first item I was referring to, as well, and that was probably one of the main issues that I had, is that, you know, I'd love to have it, but I don't want to tax a small amount of people, which our city is a very small amount of people, to have that service. So, you know, I'm with you, but I think we should at least talk to them about it and open the conversation.
Absolutely. I think it should be a discussion, but I think the benefit is probably more for folks outside our city than our own residents.
I agree with that 100%. So yeah, those are all things that that if I'm sitting in there, I'll address with them, because I'm of the similar opinion as well. But you know, one of the things I wanted to ask is whether or not we can only send one person, or whether or not
That's
we'll
what I was just going to ask.
What I didn't get any guidance on that. What I observed a year ago was Newport Richie's city manager and all of their council were there.
Well, that answers my question.
So
I can go.
I think you're all invited. Personally, I would hope that at least one of you would join me.
Okay.
But everybody's invited.
Yeah, I would certainly be on board in that if I can.
Well, I was afraid that you'd be kind of busy with work, Mr. Colombo, not be able to go.
That's why I said if I can. You do realize I'm a volunteer tax preparer, and we're heading right into the thick of the setup season.
I was being facetious. I didn't mean anything by that.
No, I understand that.
All right, so we're closed on that item. We're ready to move on. Okay.
Do you need an attendee list now, or just?
They normally put nameplates and stuff, so
Yeah,
I'm going to give them a list.
If you plan to attend, please let me know in the next couple of days.
Okay.
And then I can let Joanna know that.
You can turn me on.
Okay.
I'll scare the hell out of them.
You got orders. Sure.
Oh, no.
Okay, then the next item 7, is going to be the surplus of City Hall furniture. We'll pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've got a list and pictures. This is a property that staff has determined has no net value to the city, and would like authorization to surplus it. Request a motion to surplus.
Motion to approve the City Hall furniture as surplus property.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 8, which is the discussion of new city attorney selection. Pass that to Mr. Duke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The clerk has received a number of responses to the RFP that was put out. I believe those are in your packet. And I'll step back and let you all decide how you want to hire your next city attorney.
All right, so this is potentially an action item. Let me ask you that. If we wanted to, we could vote on an attorney today, correct? If we decided to,
Yes.
as a group. Okay.
Yeah, I just wasn't, I didn't know what you wanted the next step to be. Do you want to do interviews? Do you want to pick one? You know, that's your call, not mine.
And I'm going to open up for discussion on this one. I have a particular opinion, but I wanted to see where everyone else was at on this one. And I'll start with whoever wants to go first.
Well, if somebody else does.
All right, Mr. Colombo.
Yeah. From what I have here, are three attorneys with a lot of experience, but unfortunately, none of them have experience representing cities. Now, I know the one initially in the packet is essentially proposing to us a team approach, but the lead attorney that would be provided to us has absolutely no experience in being a city attorney. I sure as heck would like to see some other city attorney prospects for us to pick from.
Gotcha. One of the things that before we go any further, one of the things that I wanted to do, if I may, I think one of the person's opinion that's probably very valuable for us to listen to would be Mr. Matthews' opinion, if that's okay. If you don't mind putting you on the spot.
About me.
Okay, and I kind of value his opinion. He's on his way out. He's been a city. He's been a city attorney for a long period of time, so he may be able to weigh in on this and at least have an opinion that we can weigh in. I didn't know, were you able to kind of review the list here?
I reviewed it, yeah, in detail. So this is my opinion. I'll give you my opinion if you're seeking my opinion. I happen to know Mr. Trask rather well. He was president last year, as a matter of fact, of the Municipal Attorneys Association. I go to that, and I've gone to it 10 times each year. And he's probably, in my opinion, I know him as a colleague. I don't know him personally. I've spoken with him many times. He's probably the most knowledgeable on municipal law in the entire state, bar none. Okay, and you can read the different cities he represents as a group. Even before he started this process, I went to Mr. Duke that go to the regular sources, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and that kind of stuff, and a list of others. And I said, contact Mr. Trask, because he's probably the biggest player in the state for doing this, or at least he is in this area. I don't know if there's anyone any bigger than that, but he represents all kinds of cities. You can read through the resume yourself. With regard to, and obviously Mr. Trask isn't going to come, it's going to be a woman here, but Nancy Meyer, practiced about 20 years, I think, started government service after 10 years as senior assistant Pinellas County attorney. Okay, you don't get to be the senior assistant Pinellas County attorney without some pretty good credentials, and pretty much being the county attorney and the city attorneys, it's slightly different, but it's all the land development things like that. So she has, in my opinion, a tremendous amount of background. But in any event, it'll be different, and it'll always be different because I'm kind of close here, and different city attorneys. I think you have a couple, one represent a couple of cities over there. Scott, I don't know if Mr. Maggard represents a couple, but you're probably not going to find another city attorney that's even close. If they haven't responded, I presume they're well aware of this. And so what you're going to end up with someone like Trask firm that has unlimited resources in terms of if you want to do something bigger. Do you understand what I mean? So you're going to get a real high quality there. Now, the person that comes in, I've never met her. I don't know who she is, but I'm sure she's going to have that many years as the senior assistant county attorney. Is going to know everything that's on this agenda here today. You don't need a retainer agreement or anything. If you're not happy, you just get someone else. This isn't working out to get them. Okay. He has his hourly rate there. Keeps insurance. If it doesn't work, you get someone else. Do you understand what I mean? But it's up to you. Otherwise, I would probably review where you're seeking. I'm a little surprised, a little more than a little surprised. But Florida Bar, I went in there, couldn't find our ad. I find it hard to believe that if you went to Indeed, ZipRecruiter, you're not looking at 500 applications here today. Okay, just a little hard for me to get that through my head. We put out for city manager once, put it in there. Within about 2 weeks, we had 300, most of them bartenders. Okay, no offense, Mr. Duke. And we put them into 3 categories. And you're going to get that with lawyers. I mean, just the Florida Bar alone has hundreds of ads. I just couldn't find our ads. So unless you want to change where you're looking at what's going on, I have no idea where this has been advertised.
And that was one of the concerns that I have, because that's one of the things that I do here in the community is I'm at the courthouse every day. My office is next door to the courthouse. And I know pretty much about it. Any type of lawyer, at least I've run into, met them in town. And not one of them, I think, is aware that this is going on within the city. And I have a problem with that. I think that it should be out there. So you have more applications. I really like that application. I think that person's qualified, but I didn't think we had as much. I don't think it was just out there that we're looking for an attorney, because you have some really good law firms that I think would probably be interested, that represent Zephyr Hills, Dade City, and some of those. No different than Mr. Public at the time, who's now a judge. I think he represented several of the cities. But I think some of those firms would be fairly interested in, representing multiple cities and not just one. So I was kind of concerned that we didn't have more, and I didn't know if it was because it was an advertising issue or why we just didn't have the interest here.
So can we determine why we don't have?
I'd ask the clerk to kind of give us a rundown of where all we advertised.
The ads were posted where I was instructed to post to. I did post to the Florida Bar. They were posted ad for 2 weeks. A ZipRecruiter, and as far as those, I'm not too sure of. I did post to the east and west side for law, but unfortunately, those are the only ones that I've received.
And just so you know, in light of that response, I'm going to give you a date, okay? I have some other issues going. We're running on 4 months now, okay? And I'm not very comfortable or confident that this is being taken seriously, so I'm going to give you a date after today's meeting.
Well, we didn't have as many applications, but though, in my humble opinion, I really like the Trask, because I think as council now says, he's been involved with municipal law for a long time and is kind of the leading source in the area. But the county, people that work in the county's attorney's office deal with the same issues we do in cities, and they're very parallel. But that lawyer also, if she runs into an issue she's not sure of, I'm sure will pick up the phone or meet with Mr. Trask and say, hey, what's going on, or what's the deal with this particular issue, and she'll have an answer right away. So I think to hire the firm that's probably the leading firm in the state, to me, makes sense if they're willing to do it for us at a reasonable price. And then that was the other issue, is I know that Mr. Matthews represented the city for a long time, probably at a lower price than the market calls for, whether or not we have the money budgeted to increase for legal expenses. And that was
Do you have a choice?
I was gonna say.
well, if it's not budgeted, we may have to,
Go without an attorney?
no, shift things around is all I'm saying. But I just wanted to raise that issue, that obviously there's some budgetary
Or
concerns.
continue to lolook for the next year?
Yeah, there you go. I think you may be doing that, but you won't have an attorney sitting
No,
there.
so I think that the attorney we have sounds like he's looking to retire, and I can certainly respect that, and I understand that. But given what we have in front of us, I think that the Trask law firm would be the one that would make the most sense. But
Let me ask this question. You said the bar advertisement is 2 weeks? No, maybe not.
I'm sorry.
The bar advertisement is 2 weeks?
It went on for 2 weeks, yes, 14 days.
Why don't we, since we have 5 weeks, run it again, and see if we can get any more things, put it on for the next agenda, and then put, obviously, I think the Trask was impressive as well. We don't have to make a decision now, but maybe we put it up again on next agenda. Can we go through the 10th, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll give you a date.
yeah, I was making sure that we're good there. But, I don't have a problem with that. But
Do we hire just off of resume, or do we get to meet them?
You can do
or-
it.
we can pick anyone we want.
You can do it any way you want.
Okay.
I would highly recommend that you put it as I recommended, out at Indeed and ZipRecruiter and everything else. So I
Let's
tried
do
to follow
all
up,
of
but
it.
just couldn't get an answer. He's gonna get a short date after the 10th.
I will say that, I've been involved in hiring of several city attorneys, and each time they would come and meet with us.
Well, yeah, my thought is, we put it out now, get responses for the 10th, see what we have on the 10th, and have Trask and whomever else come on the following one for a discussion or meeting them. Whoever we narrow it down to on the 10th then comes on the following meeting, which is the 24th.
I don't know if we have that much time before I have to pick somebody. What we may want to do is have someone from the Trask and anyone else that we would be interested here at the next meeting.
Well, we don't know who else is at the next meeting.
Yeah, but if he's not sitting here, what are you going to do?
Well,
I'll be here on
we
the
have through the
10th. I'll be here on
24th.
the 10th.
No, but after the
Yeah,
10th.
he just said he's fine with that time frame.
Yeah, but after the 10th, you
No, he just said he's fine with the
I'll be
24th.
here on the 10th. Yeah, past that, we're gonna get to about 6 months. We're gonna give you a date just past the 10th, okay?
Yeah, so if we
Okay.
set up an interview process on the 24th, you're okay? That fits within
Yeah,
your
I'll give
time?
you that date.
So we're
yeah.
fine.
Okay, and then the next meeting, we can interview. Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure there's someone sitting there between now and then, that's all. So,
We'll put him there.
so I think it's on.
I just want to add at this point, Jim has been a resident of this city for a very long time. He's been involved with the city for a very long time. His institutional knowledge, we're never going to replace. So we have to get back to where we were once upon a time, which is an attorney who's just an attorney. And I too would like to see a few more applicants for us to choose from, and we can interview them and see how comfortable they are with them, and move on from there. And I appreciate Jim having it in there as long as he can to get us through this.
And the only other thing I was going to ask someone in the city to do is to contact the other cities that are in this county, their law firms or their attorneys, to see if there's any interest. Because I think we should be reaching out to the local attorneys that are already working for cities to see if they have the time or ability to work our city as well. But I think that we need to make those phone calls and see where we're at with that.
Stack the deck as much as we can on the 10th, because
Sure. So I'll take care of that.
Joe Public represented Zephyr Hills, then we hired him, and then Newport Richie hired him. And, he did a fine job, but then he decided to become a judge. And that's what attorneys do.
You represented Zephyr Hills at the same time also.
Yeah, he did. Three different cities. All right, so I think that closes out the discussion for the city attorney selection. Now we move on to item 9, which is the city manager contract discussion, which I'm not passing to Mr. Dew. I think that this is an item that we've put on here because we have to decide as a city and on the dais what direction we want to move the city management. I think one of the things that we talked about is the contract is illusory in nature. And what that means is that he could give notice and leave at any time. And even though there's a contract, we could say this isn't working out and terminate him pretty much at any time, if I'm not mistaken. That having been said, I think addressing it once a year to make sure that we're all on the same page with his employment is important. And then making sure that his pay is going to be commensurate with the surrounding area so we don't lose him for that reason as well. So I think those are all the issues that we should kind of look at and discuss today, if that's okay with the dais. Or the rest of the board. And I'll open with this. Mr. Colombo, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I wanted to see if you wanted to open on this particular item, and I wanted I was kind of curious your input on this particular issue.
Well, I'm not exactly what our goal is here. Is it contract extension or is it a raise? So I'd kind of like to nail that down. You know, I've looked over in the agenda of Mr. Dude's contract, and I really don't have any big issues with that. It's the first time I've seen it, by the way. The only issue I have, and that's just the way I am, is the automobile allowance, which is kind of entertaining to me, because he's paid $300 a month the transportation allowance plus mileage when he drives out of the city, and it's not a big city. But again, let's leave that all aside. Bottom line is, are we all looking at a contract extension at this point, which I'm not on board on? If you all are talking about a potential raise, I am on board with that. But then I'd also like to look at what the other elderly people in our city are getting as far as raises and otherwise. I've always been of the opinion that you have hourly workers, you have the management staff who work for salary, and which includes the fire chief, the police chief, the city manager. And those are all issues that need to be looked at separately.
And if I may, I wanted to invite, I think Mr. Matthew had something to add here, so I wanted to have some input from Mr. Matthew at this point.
Correct me, Bill, but Mr. Colombo's correct that next month is a 3-year contract. Next month, you'll be 2 years into the 3-year contract. So what Mr. Colombo's saying is, look, number one, let's talk about money. Okay, that's one issue. Okay, and he said his reasons for that. Number two is, do you want to put another year or two on the contract? Is that correct, Mr. Colombo?
Yes.
Okay, and so you can do any of those things. Okay, I mean, obviously the city manager needs, you know, where he's going. This is a big commitment at the end of the ceremony. So whether you want to give him another year on it, 2 years on it, whatever you want to do. But in any event, what makes the contract, as the mayor had said, somewhat convoluted is we have certain language in our code, and there's also state statutes on it. But regardless of what the contract says, okay, there's a process for terminating the city manager. Okay, and not that this is going to happen or anything. You got to go through that process. So obviously, usually what happens when cities, they're all pretty much set up the same way, do that, they work some deal out, you know, like, well, here's a story, we'll give you severance. Well, the state law came out and you can only give so much severance now. They used to give 2-3 years severance. I believe it's 4 or 6 months, okay? So that's all like kind of structured now. And so it's kind of like having a longer term contract just really doesn't mean too much. Again, the same if you find cause, you know, obviously you can go to court and say, well, that court is kind of silly. You couldn't do it on a whim because you want to hire a friend of yours or something like that. But it's kind of why it's a little convoluted. But the bottom line is, you know, whether you want to give additional compensation or change the mileage stuff, as well as extend the contract, okay, is a showing of support for the city manager, okay? But it really doesn't have a real lot of weight to it. Does that make sense, Mr. Colombo? Those are the two issues that he brought up, and he's correct.
Yeah.
So, and along those lines, kind of where I was going, and my thought on this is that I felt that he should get the similar or same that we've given the rest of the employees. And I think we talked about that at the last. Also, we negotiated, I think, 2-year with the other unions. So my thought is that we would want to extend at least 2 years out to be commensurate with what we've done with the unions and be similar in pay, which was, I think, 3% and 3%. And that was kind of my feel when I looked at this and when I thought about this particular issue. And I wanted to open up to see where everyone else was at.
Excuse me, I don't have a problem with that. Are we talking about, since there's another year pending, would this be on top of that, extending?
So we would recontract for another 2 years with him. The year that he already has and extended another year out, with the understanding that part of that contract extension would be 3% this year and 3% next year.
There would be one more year, but,
yeah.
Well, 2 years total, one more, one additional year.
That's
what I meant.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
That's Mr. Goodell and I were.
Yes.
I would think, just from the one, there's two issues that come with that. Right now, you have a 2-year contract with the unions. You're putting another 2-year contract with Mr. Duda at that point, so you're having everyone come up at once. Generally, you like to stagger things like that, so you have an offsetting. I would prefer to see a 2-year extension on this. That gives him essentially another 3-year term, as if we hired him today. I think, 3% a year is fair, going all the way through, given our current inflation. I think in general, we have 3% per year for the 2 unions, so carry that all the way through. And he hasn't had a raise since December of 2020, which is actually less than our hourly workers have gotten. So maybe at the renew, we want to at least bring him up to par, so give him a 4% bump to bring him with the hourly workers, and then the 3% out for the 2-year extension.
I was thinking more lines of what Todd said, 2 years on top of the 1 year, because if we give him 2 years from now, that's only giving him another year. And again, yes, we have to go through this again. So I was thinking, when you said 2 years, I was thinking 2 years on top of this year as well. So that would be another 3 years, knowing that either one of us could terminate the contract at any time. Yeah, the 4%, I didn't think about that. That's a good idea, because he has not had a raise, so.
And I'm not opposed to any of that either. It was just, and like I said, whether or not we re-up the contract for another 3 years, I think that part of the contract is we were supposed to address it every year, and not the contract necessarily, but I think, when we had the discussion on his job performance and making sure that we're on the same page with the city manager, I think that even if you have a 3-year extension, if we talk to him next year and he, we're not seeing eye to eye, we can readdress that, obviously, but not that I'm suggesting that'll happen. So whether we send it out 2 years, 1 year, whatever for the contract extension, as long as we readdress his job performance every year, I'm fine. It doesn't matter how long you go out.
I think we should do like a mid-year review for both the city manager and the city attorney. Not that Jim cares about that, because he's going to be done, but the next city attorney, that is our responsibility, to review both parties that work for us. So we should be doing both the new city attorney and the city manager at that point.
But I think by contract, it's been annual, so we just have one annual.
Well, yeah, you do a mid-year review, make it either at the end of the year or the mid. But what I'm saying is do both parties. I don't care when we do it.
No, that's fine.
Well, if I can interrupt at this point, my basic attitude is, y'all signed a 3-year contract with Mr. Duke, and that's up a year from now. I'm not inclined to readdress contracts right now. Now, I am all on board with giving Mr. Duke 3% this year, and we can make that retroactive to the beginning of the fiscal year, and we can readdress this. I don't see any reason 3-year contract, and let's address the contract as we approach the end of the contract. And we're only 2/3 into the contract right now. So I'd like to separate the two, and we will address the contract in the near future, obviously with the budget coming up. But as far as compensation goes, again, Mr. Dude is not a member of the union. Nobody is. I never was when I was in management. I do agree. Everybody needs a bit of an adjustment in compensation this year, considering the crazy inflation. But let's just nail that down. That's a quick and easy, and let's address the future things in the 3rd year of his contract, which is when you would typically address the contract.
Let me weigh in just for a moment, please. And Mr. Colombo, I humbly disagree, and here's why. I think when you're dealing with the city management position, those positions take a long time to fill. And there's a long commitment to that position, not only to fill it, but for him to go find new employment should we decide at the last minute not to renew this contract. So I agree. I think we're all in agreement in terms of either a 3 or 4% raise, which is kind of consistent with what the rest of the city's gotten. Where I disagree humbly with Mr. Colombo is I think that we need to keep his contract extended out. So if we decide to go a different direction at some point, that he has plenty of notice and that we have plenty of notice as a city. So, I think it's important to extend the contract out if we plan on, or we have a vision on having him here for a while to complete some of these projects that we're kind of in the middle of.
I agree, Scott. Yeah, I believe we should propose extending it 2 years. And this way we'll be.
Can I interrupt just quickly?
Let the rest of the council speak, and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Colombo.
Thank you.
I would like to see us extend it 2 years. So in other words, he has 1 year pending and then another 2 years on top of that. And then go ahead, compensate him this next year coming up, and then the increases for the other 2 years. But this way he knows, the city's commitment that we want to keep him, as opposed to possibly he start looking someplace else. We don't need that right now.
He's not had a raise in 2 years since he came, correct?
But I mean, if he's willing to agree with that, so this way.
And that is
next
something he
3
signed on
years-
for, but I think, as a gesture that we value his work, don't give him a big head, that, we give him the compensation that, at least our hourly worker.
Well, it's the commitment too. I don't think it's fair to have him, to put it to where he's not looking for other employment because we only have a year left on our contract. And then be surprised when he says, look, I've been out looking and I found another job somewhere else that, because there's not the commitment here in the city. And I don't think that's fair. So if we as a dais plan on having him here a little bit longer to complete some of these projects, I think it needs to be reflected in the contract.
Agreed.
I agree.
And Mr. Colombo, before anyone motions, I wanted to come back to you because I know that was different than what you said, but I wanted to circle back around to you to have an opportunity to speak again.
Yeah, all I would ask is that we address the compensation and the contract extension as 2 separate votes.
I agree with that as well. So
Messed up.
we're gonna, what he's suggesting, I agree with, that we should have 2 separate motions, 2 separate votes. One for the length of the contract on that issue and a separate one for the salary or pay. So let's break down the issues. Let's see if there's a motion for the contract extension with the period of time.
Motion for contract extension of Mr. Michael John Dude for an additional 2 years to his existing contract for a total of 3 more years.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Before we go any further, I wanted to open this up to the general public for any commentary on this particular issue. Seeing no hands, before we put it to a vote, is there anything else anyone wants to say?
No, thank you.
At this time, I'm going to call it to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1. The second item is going to now be salary. Looking for a motion and or further discussion on whether or not there's going to be a raise and what that would be.
I would have to jump in right now and say if there was anything in excess of the 3% that any other city employee got, we would have issues with staff. And I would feel the same way if I was them.
Are you motioning for a 3%? Is that what you're driving at?
Yeah, 3% I would go with.
That's a one.
Well, are you
For 1 year.
But retroactive to the fiscal year or beginning now?
3% for 1 year, retroactive to the fiscal year.
So you're just giving it a 3%.
So the motion
Pretty
is
much. It's
a 3% that would start in this fiscal year. Is that the motion?
Yes, I move to give Mr. Duke a 3% salary increase retroactive to beginning of the fiscal year 22 to 23.
Okay, so it is your motion just for 1 year of a 3% raise?
It is 1 year.
And is there a second to that motion? If there's no second, I believe that motion dies and it opens up
I'll make a motion.
for a new motion, right? Okay, so that motion is gone now and we're gonna,
Yes, it dies for the lack of a second.
dies for lack of a second and we're gonna.
I'll make a motion for a raise retroactive to the fiscal year, meaning this previous year, and then an additional 3% raise for the next, an annual 3% raise for the remainder of the contract.
At the fiscal year, because they don't match his
I'm
contract.
trying to get them back 1 year.
No,
and
but,
then-
but I'm saying they still don't match. The contract runs from January 1st, okay? But I can write it that way.
You know what I'm trying to get at.
I got it, okay? Just going to let you know so I can
But
read.
the raise starts in October is what you're saying.
Right, it'll be retroactive to October and then for as long, and they'll get one a year from now and then another year until the contract expires. Right, the raise will not dictate the term, right?
Correct.
So that raise, my understanding, would then begin January.
The raise would, the raise would start immediately, going retroactive to October, and it'll go to next October, and it'll keep going, not following the fiscal year, and if after
So it's going to
3
follow-
years from now, it may end in the middle, right?
It's going to follow the fiscal year.
Yes, it will follow, you're right. Although the contract doesn't follow the fiscal
Right.
year this one, which is fine, it's simple enough to write.
Second.
Before we have a motion and a second, before we go any further, I wanted to know if anyone from the general public wants commentary.
Before you have the second?
No, we have a second.
Oh, okay. So you said before we have a second, I could have sworn that's what you said.
Well,
Have a
seconded
second.
it.
Now that we have a second,
There you go.
before we vote,
Have a second.
Mr. Mueller, welcome. Come on up.
Dave Mueller, 5439 Blue Point Drive. Just a point of clarification. If I heard Mr. McClary state this correctly, 3% retroactive back to October. His contract renews in January, so that'd be another 3%, and another 3%, and another 3%. That's what I wanted to clarify, just. Okay, no problem, thanks.
And if I can open up for discussion on the dais before we vote. I humbly disagreed with Mr. Colombo's motion. I was kind of in the middle. We've given the rest of the folks that work here 2 years of a 3% raise, if I'm not mistaken. Which means the third year, The reason I wouldn't vote for this isn't because of this fiscal year at 3%.
We didn't give him anything before that.
No, I understand that. But we may want to give him more, we may want to give him less if on that third year. He may do a great job, and we wanted to give him 4 or 5%.
We can always adjust it then.
Well, we can address.
Again, if I get interjected at this point,
Yes.
Mr. Duke makes a lot more than a lot of our staff who are working at minimum wage and minimally above minimum wage. And you are correct. My motion was for 1 year because next year we may decide to do more. That's why the contract ends next year, and we may decide we're going to give them a 10%. That's why my motion or my idea was for this year, 3% this year, and we will address it next year.
Understood. What I would be willing to vote for would be 3% this year, 3% next year, which we've already decided, and then readdress it on the third year of his contract for the other 3%, whether it's 2%, 4%, 3%, whatever. So if I don't vote, it's not because I don't agree with the 3% this year and the 3% next year. It's because I personally think that 2 years from now, we should readdress that last year and see what the rate should be on that last year. That's just my humble opinion, but if I don't vote for it, that's why.
I would like the city to show our support for it by doing it the way, and if that other year, the second year, if we decide to give more, my understanding, we can do that at that time. But right now, showing our commitment to Mr. Duke and okay, I'm finished.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I finally took control of that button.
No, but I'd like to show, the council's commitment to him, and this is our way of supporting, but that third year out, if we decide to do something greater, so be it.
A question.
Sure.
This is going into the third year of the contract, and the contract said, there was no raise involved in any of the 3 year, and we're giving him one now. Could we not do that again in the third year? Again, raise it. So if we do 3%, as Tom is saying, 3% each year, but 2 years down the road, we go, oh no, 10% or 1%, we can do that at the third year?
In reality, that's what we're doing.
That's what we're doing now, right?
Because we're going to be in the same, 2 years from now, we're going to be in the same situation that we are right now. He's going to be saying, guys, what do we do? And then we're going to be voting on raises and everything else, and either a contract extension or whatever it is for another 2 or 3 years. We're going to be in the same position 2 years from now, in which case we then can also readjust any raises, just like we did before, where we just gave them 3%. We can do it again 2 years from now.
Yeah, but if they could. No.
I disagree with that. No, you have just voted to extend his contract 2 more years, which makes it a 3-year contract.
Correct.
You've also agreed to pay him 3% retroactive to the last fiscal year a couple months ago, and increase that each year through the term of the contract.
Correct.
You can't 11 months from now say, something, we're not giving you that.
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, that's what it sounded like.
No, but in 2 years, you're going to be reevaluating his contract again. For
3 years, you'll be reevaluating his contract.
He'll be done in 3 years.
But in 2 years, we're going to be at that 1 year point where he's got 1 year left.
That's correct. And you could reevaluate it, but you can't cut it. You said cut it. You're not going to be able to ever cut it.
Yeah, again, correct. You can't cut it.
That's what you said. That's what I'm saying.
You can increase it though.
But
I know that's what you meant, but I can only comment on what you said. You said cut it. I'm telling you can't cut it.
But in 2 years, you're going to be reevaluating his.
Sure, you can give more, of course.
Yeah, you can give him more at that point.
But you can't give them less if you.
I know. It just spoke wrong.
I don't mean he can give him less.
So in other words, if we decide 2 years
Lawyer,
from now.
stop yelling at me.
No. If we decide 2 years from now, though,
Means a lot to John, you know.
No, but if we decide a couple of years from now that we're not as happy then as we are now, you can't go back and say, well, we're gonna not give them 3%, we're gonna roll it back to 1% or 0%, whatever.
We can't do that.
And I'm not comfortable with that. Not that I don't appreciate where we're at to this point, but I think that if you lock it in for 2 years, I think that's a good time to readdress the salary, but that takes care of the salary issue, which is 3%, which on a $120,000 salary is a lot of money. I think that shakes out to rough math, about $6,000 a year.
$3,600.
$3,600 a year. So about $7,000 total then over the course of the 2 years, which would put them at 127 right now.
No, it'd be 3 years. So it's $3,600 a year, and then the next year it's going to be like $4,100, and then it's going to go
compound, right?
and it's going to compound from there. So at the end of the 3-year term, you're going to be at around 132, 33.
Understood. I just want to clarify because Mr. Dude's sitting here, that the reason that I would vote against this is only because I was more in favor of a 2-year with 3% bumps and not 3 years of 3% bumps. Okay. So if I vote against it, that's why, not because I don't believe that he should have more money. Okay. But the motion as it sits is for 3 years of 3% bumps. Okay. So that having been said, are you guys ready to put it for a vote?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay?
No.
So let's just poll, because I didn't hear what was over here, but it was,
Yeah.
so can you poll the,
Sure. Councilman Colombo, what's your vote?
Nay.
Councilwoman Linda Rodriguez, what is your vote?
Yes.
Mayor Scott Tremblay, what is your vote?
who's a nay?
Councilman Tom McClary, what is your vote?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Tom Kinsella, what is your vote? It's late, sorry.
So
You already posed them, so.
motion passes 3-2, and that puts us to old business.
I'll prepare a brief addendum, send it over to Mr. Dude. I'm sure it'll be fine. Then we'll.
Watch you went through all that, he's going to reject it.
It'll be a very brief document.
So that having been said, let's move on to old business. I'm gonna pass. Limestone Pier, we have a timeline already. I see that, and then I think there's the street project, which you touched on already.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, touched on both of those in my report.
So any other old business?
No, I'd just like to, because of that timeline that we do have with that money to, have every meeting have an update on it so we can keep this moving along.
I wanted to touch on old business, if I may, on the street project specifically. It's my understanding that the county has engaged similar street repair or maintenance in the area. And I'm not talking about just the marking the road or putting the restriping. I'm talking about the actual upgrading the roads in terms of the mill and lay or however we're going to do it. But the question that I have is, I know that the county is in the process of contracting for this area. Are we engaged with the county to see if we can piggyback off of whatever they're doing and try and knock it out in one big project?
Yeah, but actually, we're engaged with the contractor that received the award from the county. So yes, we would intend to piggyback off of theirs. They are verbally committed to the same square yard price.
Okay, and what's the timetable? Because it's the same issue with ARPA funds on the roads than it is with the pier. Do we have a timetable?
I don't have a next step with them. We talk to them every week or so we'll get in touch with them and get you a timetable.
Okay, and then the next step on that is obviously the way that it's done is you have one company that does the mill and overlay or street repair, and then you have a separate company that does the restriping.
Right.
Does the county have a company for restriping for their road project? Do you know?
I don't know, and restriping is a different set of contractors, we've learned.
Okay.
And there's not many of them. So, but who the county uses, we can find that out. See if we can piggyback off of their work too.
Right, because I think that as long as the prices are right, I would think that piggybacking off of their road construction projects in the area just makes sense to me.
Right.
Which is the same, I think, that we did on Washington and some of the other projects we've done in the past. So I just wanted to ask you that and just kind of see if you could explore that for us.
Will do.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I had on old business. Mr. Colombo, I know that I cut you off. I wanted to open the floor to you.
You didn't cut me off. My mic wasn't working for opening comments at the beginning of the meeting. So I just wanted to congratulate Ashman for her position with the City Clerks Association. I think that's great. And I also want to say I am happy to see that the folks down in the Riverfront District, over Entertainment District, whatever you want to call it, are coming together into an organization that we can work with proactively for future events. So this is not old business, but I just wanted to get that on the record.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there any other?
One more thing.
Yes.
I want to compliment this room. There's life to it finally. It is, I like the old photographs.
You too.
The decorations, I mean, whoever, the staff, I'd like to congratulate them, but
That was staff, that was Sal, Ashley, Veronica helped.
fantastic. I mean,
And others.
the room has life, so it looks nice. Thank you.
I believe that's all the old business. Looking for
Would you,
Yes.
let the water, the Courier Landing group that you're gonna be going to, I'm sure the CAC would be more than willing to assist if they should want or need, in the future. I'm sure Angel or someone would be more than willing to attend or help or do whatever. So just, I'm sure, offer their services or their, in whatever.
Will do.
I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
And I'd just like to interject a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to all. Good health. And as this is our last meeting, I just thought I should throw that in.
And there's one more meeting, sir, so please don't go.
Oh, come on.
There's a CRE meeting following this.
Yeah, we have another meeting.
Yeah, I know that.
Oh, okay. You're running away on us here.
I was about to hang up.
All right, looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.